Will 3D printing be popular at kids camp using the AnyCubic Kobra X? That's what we're going to find out in this video. Hi, I'm Ken of Wrist Innovations, and welcome to today's video where I will share my adventure to introduce 3D printing to about 250 kids aged from 5 years to 12 years old during our church's week-long Kids Camp Vacation Bible School. I volunteered to teach a science class 2 of the days, so I wanted to dovetail 3D printing and laser engraving into the standard curriculum. I reached out to AnyCubic, and they were excited to sponsor today's video and provide me with some filament for the kids camp. So thank you, AnyCubic. Also, if you're interested, I have an affiliate link for the AnyCubic printer in the description. Our church's kids camp is held every summer for 1 week, and it is led by our youth pastor team along with the help from many volunteers from our church. This year's theme is Adventures in Ireland. So what to 3D print? I read through the science curriculum for the 2 days that I volunteered for, and the 1 day was on personal traits such as hair color, eyes, etc., as well as DNA. Our science team thought, wouldn't it be great if we could 3D print a DNA keychain and give out to every kid attending the kids camp? I found this DNA keychain by Club Medic 69415 on Printables. This was a perfect solution because most of the print is in one base color and the DNA strands can be made in different colors, but it minimizes the number of color changes for each part. I scaled the keychains down to 80% so I could easily fit at least 20 keychains on each build plate. For every batch of 20 keychains, I changed the colors of the base and the DNA strands so that there would be dozens of color combinations so each kid could get a unique keychain for a given class. This tied in nicely with the DNA message to the class that each of our own DNA is unique to us. I used my AnyCubic Kobra X to print all 300 DNA keychains, and the Kobra X worked perfectly with no failures on any of the batches. I used a variety of PLA colors to make the keychains. Each batch of 20 keychains took approximately 3 hours to print, and they only generated 4 grams of waste versus a total amount of 74 grams used per batch. So, in total, it took 15 batches, over 45 hours of printing, and I only generated 60 grams of waste out of 1,110 grams total, or about 5%. During this time, I ordered these lobster claw clasps and key rings to attach to each of the 3D printed DNA parts. I attached the lobster claw clasps and key rings to the DNA parts, and then I separated them by colors so I could bag them up for each class so they had a variety of colors. The kids camp leaders and volunteers spent weeks decorating the church in preparation for kids camp. So here's a brief video clip of what I'm talking about. For my classroom, I brought in quite a variety of 3D printed parts to show the kids the capabilities of 3D printing. I had dinosaurs, lamps, the Eiffel Tower, a spinning top toy, vases, roses, my death racer, and even a round end table made with real wood. If you're curious as to how I made the round end table, I have a link in the description. I brought in two AnyCubic 3D printers. I set the Kobra X on the table with all of the 3D printed parts around it. But I did not run it because I didn't want the kids exposed to any of the fumes, and I didn't want them to touch the hot parts of the printer. However, I did actually run the AnyCubic Kobra S1 3D printer because I could set it up in the corner of the room, and I attached an exhaust fan and hose and directed the exhaust out the window. If you want to see my full evaluation videos of the AnyCubic Kobra S1 or the Kobra X, I have links in the description. I even set up a large screen TV so that I could show the class time lapses of me making 3D printed parts. It was time to start the kids camp science class. So, as the first group of kids came into the classroom, I asked them to form a line and walk past the tables with all the 3D printed parts and see the actual AnyCubic 3D printers, including the Kobra S1 that was actually making parts. The kids were so fascinated with all the 3D printed parts, I had a hard time to get the line to move so that all the kids could get a chance to see and touch the 3D printed parts. I asked them if they had ever heard of 3D printing, and I was surprised that for each of my classes that most of the kids raised their hands, and a few of them even had 3D printers at home. When I asked them how a 3D printer works, I did get some fascinating descriptions. I briefly showed them the slicer software and explained how the parts are built in very thin layers, similar to how DNA is created. The kids were very excited when I told them that each of them was going to get a 3D printed DNA keychain. Some of the kids were bold enough to ask me if they could have my 3D printed sample parts I had on the display table. But I told them I couldn't give them the 3D printed parts to only some of the kids because it wouldn't be fair to the other kids. Since the kids were so excited about wanting more 3D printed parts, the next day I set up a contest so there was a winner at each table that could come up and pick out a 3D printed prize. I made enough DNA keychains that I was able to also give them to the leaders and helpers, which some were as excited as the kids to get the keychains. Unfortunately, due to privacy concerns, I wasn't able to film the kids in my classroom or anywhere within the kids camp. Teaching 3D printing at our church's kids camp was a great experience for me and the kids. I was able to expose the kids at a young age of 5 to 12 years old the power of 3D printing to allow the kids to see how they can make anything they can dream up. Many of the kids thought that 3D printing day was the best science class subject of the week, and the kids camp leaders would like to see me have 3D printing in the science class for next year. If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to watch my evaluation video of the AnyCubic Kobra X, that link is here. If you'd like to watch my evaluation video of the AnyCubic Kobra S1, that link is here. Thanks for watching. Bye!